Education and the Klamath Trinity Instructional Site. Let's go.
Thank you. Okay, so we are from the Klamath Trinity Instructional Site, which is a satellite site of College of the Redwoods. This satellite site is located 70 miles from the main campus, and it's about an hour and a half drive. And so our audience that we're speaking to is the Academic Senate. And while we are a satellite campus, our students are still CR students. And they deserve the opportunity to complete their general education in a set time frame at Hoopa. Before I get going any further, I'll introduce myself. I'm Gussie, this is Matthew, Emerald, Misty, and Lance, and Colin, our other team member, had to travel back this morning. So, but next, Misty's going to talk about, share the historical context as to why education is so important.
Since time immemorial, the various tribes across the United States have taught their children about the unique heritage, culture, tradition, and languages of the indigenous people. Around the late 1400s to the early 1500s, white settlers introduced colonial violence upon the indigenous people, and the population dropped from around 5 to 15 million to approximately 237,000 indigenous people living in the 1900s. In California specifically, the gold rush of 1848 to 1855 resulted in massacres across the states supported by the government. California governor declared a war of extermination on the indigenous people in 1955. The people were removed from their ancestral lands through violent genocidal tactics that include starvation, killing, and driving out the inhabitants. After depleting the natural resources, the degraded areas were then assigned as reservations, while the pristine wilderness areas became national parks under the care of the government. Military forts were constructed across the state to prevent indigenous uprising. Soldiers assigned to these forts were instructed to kidnap indigenous children and relocate them out of the area into boarding schools where indigenous identities were stripped away. Boarding school was an effective tool of forced oppression on the indigenous people of California. In the late 1900s, a law was enacted and indigenous children were forcibly removed from their parents and made to attend the federally run boarding schools. Designed to strip away the child's cultural identity by killing the Indian to save the man, these schools forced the children to cut their hair, attend Christian services, change their names, and were forbidden to speak their native languages. Children that did not comply were abused and starved. Many of the children died from malnutrition. For over 100 years, the removal of children took place on reservations. And for those who were able to make their way home, the trauma continued to follow them. Those children had trouble communicating in their native languages with their family, and they no longer had knowledge of their traditional customs. Children who attended these boarding schools lost traditional teachings and became more authoritarian, emotionally unavailable, and punitive parents to their children. Passing these unhealthy parenting skills down from generation to generation and eventually leading to negative mental health and delinquency for the indigenous youth. Out of the 25 boarding schools run by the U.S. government, 3 of them were located in California. But more importantly, one was located on the exact location where our current Klamath Trinity Instructional Site resides and operated from 1880 to 1932. So it was only 92 years ago did the boarding schools end, making their way for the current K-12 education system. The boarding schools and other assimilation processes have contributed to the disproportionate graduation and completion rates, as well as educational levels for indigenous people. Education was weaponized as an eraser of traditional culture, and now the withholding of education is a continuation of the trend of systematic oppression.
Why is the Klamath Trinity Instructional Site important to our community? So we have 16.7% of people in our community with a bachelor's degree or higher, while all of California has 37% with a bachelor's or higher. The employment in our community is at 38.2%, while all of California is at 60%.
When we compare community to the rest of California, the only area that we are higher in is in the level of poverty. While all of California is at 12.2% poverty, our community is at 28.5. Having access to high quality college classes and degrees is the only way we're going to improve the living conditions on the reservation and help people out of poverty.
The statistics show that the educational disparities students in our community have endured have led to the multi-generational oppression. Therefore, to break the repressive cycles, KTIS students need courses offered on a regular interval in person so they can complete at least their general education within 3 semesters in Hoopa.
Offering more online classes is not a viable solution because the students in our area prefer face-to-face courses for extra support and the ability to create a sense of belongingness. Furthermore, online is not a reliable remedy due to the internet being unreliable in much ways. Creating and implementing this schedule will set KTIS students up for success and decrease many barriers to their education. Plus, finishing this sequence will allow our students to build a strong foundation early on, which will increase their retention and success rates.
Native Americans Reclaiming Education is a significant movement that challenges colonial narratives and addresses historical inequities and injustices faced by Indigenous people in education. Higher education empowers Native Americans by providing them with knowledge, skills, and credentials necessary to pursue meaningful careers and leadership roles in their communities and beyond. This effort will open doors to the economic and This effort will open doors to economic opportunities for Native Americans by helping address long-standing disparities in income and employment rates with Indigenous communities. With the support of faculty willing to commit to teaching at the KT sites and advocate for administration to schedule the necessary in-person classes, this effort can be the catalyst of change for a community in need of breaking the effects of intergenerational trauma in which education was a part.